Look, have mercy on me.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Usually my producer. This week will be my co-host, Kenny Stubblefield, is joining me. Gabe Kuhn, if you did not know, he got married on Saturday. Him and his now wife, Taylor, are headed to St. Lucia for their honeymoon, so he'll be
Don't give
back.
away all the details, man.
Huh?
Don't tell everybody where they're going. You might have some Gabe Kuhn fans
He's
rushing
already
to St.
said
Lucia.
he's said it on the air multiple times.
Oh, did he?
He's put it out there. So he will be back next week. We'll be back in studio next week. But for this week, it's just me and Kenny. But before we get started, I just want to shout out Gabe and Taylor again. We're both at the wedding on Saturday. Beautiful wedding. A lot of people there, a lot of family and friends celebrating Gabe and Taylor. So happy and excited for them. No, it's been a long time coming. I think they've been together for like 9 years. So they were clearly very, very excited. Awesome for them. It was great to see them so happy.
It was a good day, man. It's a good day. It's been a long time since I've been to a wedding. So y'all are both, you and Gabe are kind of both in y'all's every weekend's a wedding kind of phase right now because all your friends are getting married and all that. It's been a while for me and Tracy. We haven't been to a wedding in a long time. So it was kind of cool. And the Cadre's a pretty dope spot in Memphis for a wedding. So it's a beautiful wedding though, man. Taylor and Gabe are awesome people, so we're excited for them, and I hope Gabe has a good time. Hope they both have a good time on their honeymoon, man. It's gonna be a fun trip.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And no, you're absolutely right. I had a wedding last weekend, a wedding this weekend, Gabe's wedding this weekend, and then I have a wedding shower this upcoming weekend. So it is that time. But Saturday, while we were at the wedding, we were trying to keep up with Memphis and Boise State, kept up with it as best as we could during the wedding.
Yeah.
It did not start out pretty. 17-0. Memphis went down, and it looked like everything was gone. Like it felt like that. Just watching it, it felt like what's left for this team. Like, is there any way that they're going to crawl out of this early hole that they've dug themselves into? And if they don't, like, then the season is kind of
it's over,
feeling like a crash and burn type scenario, but they pulled it together. They pulled it together in a big way. They scored twice right before the half. I think 5 minutes left.
Last 5 minutes of the second quarter.
Yeah, last 5 minutes before halftime, they scored 2 touchdowns. Go into the half with all the momentum, and then they come out and they really dominated the second half. The score is a little bit closer looking than it really was in the second half. I know Boise State went down and scored a late touchdown when they were down by 10, but it came down to an onside kick. So really the score wasn't as close as the game was. Specifically in the second half, Memphis played extremely well defensively. Offensively, they were able to move the ball up and down the field. The biggest topic, though, is Seth Henigan. We've been critical of him and his performance and turning the ball over, and this game was really on his shoulders, and he delivered.
He delivered, man. He definitely delivered. I mean, I feel like the 17-0 deficit at the beginning of the game, you know, I was actually at home getting ready to go to Gabe's wedding when the game started, and so I was throwing stuff at the house because I was just like, what is going on? Like, this is, you know, what is happening right now? It almost felt like a Tulane situation from last year, you know, when the Tigers went down. I think, what was it 35-0 at halftime?
It was bad.
Something like that. It just felt very uninspiring the first, you know, quarter and a half or quarter and three quarters of the second quarter. It just felt completely uninspired football coming from the Tigers. And a lot of it was on, you know, with Seth, the way that he was, there just didn't seem to be a whole lot of like, let's go. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just
sense of
urgency to like really get things going. And then that shifted, man. Like, that completely shifted for him in that second quarter, the end of the second quarter and into the second half. And I really do. I wonder what your thoughts are, because you understand the quarterback position much better than I do. Really felt like that was probably one of his best games he's had at Memphis since he's been at Memphis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't his most passing yards or his most touchdowns or his most completions, but just as far as managing the game and keeping the team in the game in those I can't overstate how important those last 2 drives before halftime were. Like getting those 2 touchdowns, if you don't get those, then you probably don't win this game. Like they had to have it, and he delivered when they had to have it. So I mean, it was definitely the best performance from this year. And just thinking back, I mean, it's definitely up there for his best performance in a Memphis uniform. 270 yards, 2 touchdowns doesn't necessarily jump off the page, but just what he did with his legs as well. I mean, he made a lot of big plays with his legs, which is not something that we're necessarily accustomed to with Seth Henigan, but multiple times getting out of the pocket, whether it was extending a play or, picking up first downs with his legs, or, even getting Memphis into better situations on 2nd and 3rd down by getting out of the pocket and getting 5 or 6 yards with his legs. Like he really did everything in this game to keep them in this game and then to ultimately take over and win the game. But there's a lot of big moments from this game that I think Memphis can draw from the rest of the season. This one's more of a one-off, but just this is what flipped completely 100% undoubtedly flipped the momentum. The blocked field goal that went for a touchdown by Geoff Cantin-Arku. I mean, that I think that's when they took their first lead of the game, correct? Yes, it was. It was 17. It was 17-14.
17-14.
Touchdown game, and that flipped the game. I mean, that's a 10-point swing.
Yeah,
for Memphis. So that was absolutely huge. And then Memphis kind of just used that to fuel them the rest of the game. We've been asking where it's been. We even talked to him last week during the Players Club. Demir Blankumsey finally gets the big play, the deep shot. He split the secondary and was basically wide open, and Seth Henigan put it on him for a 60-yard touchdown.
Seth even said it after the game, pretty bad ball. And I agree with him. It wasn't a great ball that he threw, but Demir was so wide open
that it didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
It got there.
It got there. It might have been a struggle getting there, but it got there. So it was a great play by Demir getting open like that. Yep.
Yeah, completely agree. You have Blake Watson just continuing to be the best player on this football team. Like, let's just call it what it is. Blake Watson, I truly believe, is this team's best player this game. 19 carries, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. He iced the game with the short touchdown run late in the 4th quarter. And that drive overall was a lot of him ripping off bigger chunk runs, 10, 15-yard runs, and then ultimately finishing it in the end zone and really putting it out of reach. Like I said, they went down, they scored a quick touchdown. They had a chance at the onside kick with, I think, like 38, 39 seconds left. But Blake Watson is awesome. And they didn't use him as much in the passing game because Memphis ran the ball effectively. And I really feel like in this game, Kenny, like everything we've talked about, the majority of those boxes got checked. Like Seth playing an efficient game, not turning the ball over, check. Blake Watson and the running backs being able to find running room and have effective running to open up the passing game, check.
Right.
Weapons standing out as far as receiver goes. Rock Taylor is on an incredible 3-game stretch where would he have 100 in this game? So he's over 300 yards in the last 3 games combined with. Did he score last week also? Is it 3 touchdowns or 2? I think he has 3. I think he has a touchdown each of the last 3 games. No, I don't think he scored last week. I think he had like 150 yards, no touchdowns last week. But regardless, he's on a tear right now. Him and Seth Henigan clearly have developed really good chemistry. Got in the end zone this game, and it was a short hitch route where he broke a tackle and got to the end zone. So, and then Demir, as we talked about, breaking out with a big play. So check on the weapons. The running defense played very well. Ashton Genty was coming off a couple of huge games. And yes, he had the touchdowns in this game, but as far as from a yards per carry standpoint, they were really able to shut that down. The only thing that we've talked about that wasn't fully cleaned up in this game was the big plays in the passing game. Taylor Green was able to get a couple of big plays. I think maybe they had 1 or 2 plays that were over 50 yards. Let me check real quick. Yeah, they had a 52-yard reception, a 59-yard reception, and a 37-yard reception. So Taylor Green in this game threw for 200 yards, and 150 of it came on 3 throws.
Right.
And that's something that's going to be concerning until it's not to me, because the last 3 games, the Navy game, the Missouri game, Boise State game, passing, they've been able to pick up big plays. At Navy, it was more on the ground. I think they ripped off a long run. You're not going to get beat deep much by Navy, but as far as the Missouri and Boise State game, like, they were able to take advantage of them over the top.
Let me ask you this. Can I ask you a question about this?
Yeah.
I might be jumping the gun just a few minutes for a few seconds, but when it comes to you talked about the boxes that kind of been taken up, been checked over this last week, and the big plays in the passing game is one that you were kind of concerned about, and that 3 passes, a majority of his yards, 3/4 of his yards came from 3 passes this past week. When you are in today's day and age of college football in general, is it even feasible to like shut down all of a team's offense in the way that, whether it's through big plays, whether it's through intermediate passing, or whether it's through the run game? Can you, like, how difficult is it to shut down especially when you got a guy like Ashton Genty, who's leading the nation in all-purpose yards this year? You can tell the Tigers were seriously focusing in on him. But what are your thoughts on, like, I mean, does that concern you that they gave up that many passing yards or that many big plays? Or is it more so you've got to give one to kind of shut down another? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, no, it definitely concerns me. Like, giving up 2 50-plus yard passing plays is definitely concerning, especially coming off of the Missouri game where they allowed multiple big passing plays as well. Because, yes, being multifaceted on offenses, it's very difficult to shut everything down. But to me, you would rather allow the underneath throws and play that soft zone coverage and allow them to kind of dink and dunk and force them to pick up first downs and, maybe force some more turnovers and interceptions by sitting back in those soft zone coverages and making a quarterback who's not necessarily known for his accuracy, like Taylor Green, beat you. And instead they're, allowing multiple 50-plus yard passing plays. So it does concern me a little bit. And ultimately, it wasn't the death knell for Memphis in this game. They were able to overcome it, but they weren't able to overcome it for Missouri. And that's what Gabe and I talked about last week. Like, if they don't allow those big plays, that's a game that they probably win. So until we see those things cleaned up and it's not consistent, because big plays are not consistent, like, just in general. Generally speaking, like, sometimes it's a busted coverage. Sometimes, it's just a perfectly executed play. Like, it's a pretty futile stat. Big plays are, for the most part. There's some teams that, like Ohio State having Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka, like, they're going to have big plays because they have 2 of the top 5 or 6 receivers in the country.
Right.
But allowing them consistently is what concerns me. Like I said, now we have a 3-game sample where it's been big plays 3 games in a row on the ground and in the air. But there is someone I want to talk about, someone that you and I are big fans of, and he is becoming really a superstar in front of our eyes, and that is Chandler Martin, the transfer from East Tennessee State. In this game, he had 2 tackles for loss, a sack, and I think he had 9 total tackles.
Nine totals. I think 9 solo, right?
No, 9 total, 5 solo, a sack, and 2 tackles for loss. I talked to him before the season started, and he's the modern day linebacker. He's a little bit undersized, but he's fast. He's physical. Yeah. He can cover. Like, this guy can do everything, and he has been incredible for this Memphis defense. And we talk about this all the time, like, coming in from smaller schools, how does it translate? And Chandler is a guy that sold out quickly, and everything is translated extremely well and very fast, and he is so impressive for this defense.
Yeah, I want to give my thoughts on Chandler before you jump back in, and because you're much more knowledgeable about this, about what he does on the field that makes him so special. But I'm glad you mentioned him, because as I was going back to rewatch the game yesterday, because I didn't get a chance to see the majority of the good parts of the game, because of Gabe's wedding. Chandler really, especially in this game, but even in previous games as well, he really does stand out for the Tigers in terms of his, and I think a lot of it is his speed, his ability to move side to side, sideline to sideline is really impressive. But I think another thing that is impressive to me is his ability to, when he puts his hands on a guy, when he puts his pads on a guy, he makes an impact. Like he's not a speed guy who doesn't know how to tackle.
Right.
When he hits you, when he makes contact with you, you're either going to be stopped or you're going to be, your momentum is going to be stopped or you're going to the ground. Right. Like he just definitely makes an impact. And I think it's super interesting the way that his skills, like even when we saw him as he was coming in from ETSU, seeing the tape of him, you could tell that there was that he had a lot of speed and could tackle, but you also did wonder, like, how would that translate? And it's very clearly translated at this level. But just as a linebacker, as an outside linebacker, what do you see in him, like, other than just the little medial stuff that I've mentioned, but what are some other things you see in him that you like so much?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing really is his speed. Like, that's his biggest weapon, his biggest asset is just being able to move laterally extremely quickly. But also for someone who's coming from a smaller school, like, you wonder what their football IQ is going to be.
Oh yeah.
Like, how are they going to diagnose plays? And he diagnoses plays very quickly, and that's why we see him racking up like tackles for loss and big plays around the line of scrimmage. Because if you're a linebacker making plays 7-8 yards down the field, then you're not doing your job. It doesn't matter how fast you are. It doesn't matter how hard you hit people. Like, if you're making plays 8 yards down the field, you're not really doing your job. But if you're making them around the line of scrimmage and in the backfield, then that says a lot just about how quickly you diagnose, like, okay, this guard is pulling, so I know it's going here, or they're trapping in the middle, so this is where it's coming. So he's really able to read cues from offensive linemen and from his defensive linemen as well, on where the ball is going and diagnose things very quickly. So that, to me, that it's those things. It's the mental aspect of it, the IQ aspect of it, and then having the physical traits, mainly the speed, to get there and to, kind of beat running backs to their spot or beat offensive linemen to their spot and make plays before they really get going, before they're able to pick up steam or anything like that. He's already there.
I wanted to ask you about Josh Ellison too.
Yeah, he's a monster.
I mean, is he not a monster?
Monster.
Like,
yeah, and that's who, like, all offseason, all spring, we heard about him from the coaching staff. Like, Josh Ellison has come in and made a big difference. And then doing the Players Club, like having Derek Hunter come in and Hank Pierce. We've had a couple of defensive linemen come in, Cormonte Hamilton as well, and we've talked to them about the defensive linemen, and in particular Josh. Like, I think I've asked all of them about Josh off camera, and they've all just rave reviews about Josh and what he does and what he brings. And he's another guy that's made a big impact. Like, we've seen these guys that they brought in this offseason are really contributing to how – and I know it doesn't necessarily look like this defense has improved if you look at the last two games from a points perspective. But, like, what they did, and they're definitely improved. And what they did in the second half, like, they allowed, 15 points?
Right.
And really, they only allowed a touchdown, that second touchdown, and whatever. Like I said, the game was pretty much already decided at that point. Like, this is a good unit. They are a good group. It hasn't been perfect. I don't think it's all been put together yet. I think the best of what this defense has is yet to come, or should be at least. I think when they really get into the meat of conference play, we'll see this defense be relatively dominant. But yeah, Josh, Chandler, these guys that they've brought in, Geoff, who they brought in last year, like, they are really the pillars of the defense.
Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely feels like, Jeff's play that he made, I know it was on special teams, but he makes plays all over the field when he's playing, when he's on the defensive side of the ball. But it feels like Geoff and Chandler and Josh are really just
another guy that's played really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, it's definitely, and I agree with you. I think, you can look at what a team like Navy did on the ground, or you could look at a team like what a team like Missouri did in the air with a guy like Luther Burden and Brady Cook. And you go, man, those numbers just aren't great. But if you're watching the game and you're seeing kind of what's going on out there, it's very clear that this defense is much better than it has been in the last multitude of years, right?
Yeah.
Like they're just I haven't seen a guy, I started this off by mentioning Josh Ellison. I haven't seen a guy like a defensive lineman for the Tigers create so much havoc, especially an interior defensive lineman for the Tigers. Have you ever, when's the last time we saw a guy that was able to, a guy like Josh Ellison who played an interior defensive lineman position, just create so much havoc, not just on rushing the quarterback, but also getting in the backfield during run plays? Like, it just feels very different. It looks very different to me.
Oh, well, I can't think of the guy's name that I'm thinking about, and I don't know why. He went to South Panola. He was undersized defensive tackle.
Oh, you talking about
I can see his face right now.
O'Brien
Goodson.
O'Brien Goodson? Yeah.
But and O'Brien was a very good player, but there's a difference with Josh Ellison just with the size. Like, the size makes a huge difference. A guy that's 6'4", 300 pounds is way different than OB, who was, just really good at leverage and just had a really good motor. He wasn't a physical specimen by any means. So I don't know.
Maybe Bryce Huff.
Yeah, but
even though Bryce was coming outside,
defensive end, just interior defensive linemen. They've been so undersized, at least since I've been covering the team, that there hasn't been a true game wrecker that they've had. And I know they had Cam Jackson last year, but he was kind of an up and down roller coaster of, if he wanted to make those big plays, he would. And then there was times where he wasn't necessarily giving you much. So to me, Josh is the best interior defensive lineman they've had in quite some time. He had 2 tackles for loss this game, was another big reason why they couldn't get the run game going. Yeah,
no doubt. It was impressive. All
right, Kenny, we got anything else on this? Are we ready to send it to the old hot 3?
No. We got to go. I know we're at bye week right now, right? Like we've talked about it from the very beginning of the year that this 3-game stretch, the Missouri, the Boise, and the Tulane game are going to be kind of the make or break part of the season. We got a bye week, so we're not going to talk Tulane just yet, but 5 games in, where are you at with the Tigers so far? What are you feeling?
I feel good about it. I think they are improving on both sides of the ball as we get into the halfway point of the season. And once again, I know raw statistics, it may not look like it defensively, but I just feel like they can really put it together and have a really good close to the season.
Yeah.
And offensively, it speaks for itself. Like, they just played their most complete game offensively. Maybe not in the first half, but still, like that, it's not a complete game. I get that. They weren't dominant for a complete game, but we've talked about the consistency, the up and down, and it's like, okay, you're good on a drive, and then you don't do anything on the next drive, and it's the up and down. They didn't do anything throughout the beginning of the game, but really from the end of the second quarter on, they were very effective. And to me, that was the most consistent game that they had played, even though they were blanked almost to halftime, just because that last stretch was so consistent and you saw everything that we've been talking about. So peaking at the right time is a good thing. And I don't think they've peaked yet, but I think we're getting to the point where they're going to start playing their best football games. And then a bye week is perfect because you're able to get healthy. You're able to, have new installs. You're able to kind of reset going into probably your most difficult game of the year. So I feel really good about where they're at right now.
Yeah, me too. You ready for the hot 3?
Yep.
Well, let's take a break.
All right, take a quick break. Get back with a hot 3.
Bluff City Media and Bluff City NIL are proud partners of Coaching for Literacy, a Memphis nonprofit using the power of sports to impact childhood literacy. When you donate to Bluff City NIL through Coaching for Literacy, your gift is 100% tax deductible. This partnership is a win-win-win. Tiger student athletes win in the NIL landscape. Coaching for Literacy wins by engaging Tiger student athletes in this monumental cause. And most importantly, elementary students in Memphis receive support to become strong readers. To donate today, visit coachingforliteracy.org/bluff-city.
We teased about what's going to happen with John in suspension. I don't know if he's going to be wearing a big mustache and change his name to, Ha Miranda or something. I don't know what they're going to do. But I think they're playing with us. You talk to Taylor Jenkins, he's like, oh, we don't really know. Dude, you know whether John Morant is going to be in practice or not.
And we've known about this suspension now for a substantial period of time.
I am a Grizz conspiracy theorist, as you all know.
Yes.
And this is what I think has happened. I think they're lying. All right.
Anthony Sain's conspiracy theories do not reflect my efforts.
I'm just going to throw this off
Warning.
of you. But I think that the league has told him he can practice, he can go to camp, but he has to be zero visibility. Oh, that's actually the same theories. Those are not the thoughts of Jessica Benson.
Sure.
Even if she was nodding her head, that was just out of courtesy. That wasn't that she
just
agreed.
being polite.
Right, exactly. So,
I'm your guest.
All right, something else they lied to us about. Steven Adams.
Oh, God.
Tune in to The Anthony Sain Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
But looking back on it, I think Seth has to be better. I think play calling needs to be better. I think that
at times,
sure. It feels
a lot of
like
it is RPO,
so it looks one way. It looks like we're just handing it off left and right. But that's not really what it is.
The offense can't get into any sort of like they go through these periods where they look great, they're moving the ball, they can put points up, and then they just 3 and out or 4 plays, 10 yards, and have to punt.
That was kind of surprising.
Rock looks like what we've hoped he would look like.
Yeah,
he and Blake need to be your offense moving forward.
I am going to disagree there. Only because we have more weapons. Where's Blake Humsey? Where's Demir? It feels like the offense has been handcuffed.
Stop using the run to try to set up the pass.
It can be, you can flip that.
Throw the ball down the field and it'll open the run up.
Spread it, open it up, spread the ball around. That will open up the box. Let Blake be Blake.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Discover a world of possibilities at Streetcars of Memphis. Revamp your ride with the ultimate auto transformation. From booming audio systems to eye-catching wheels, powerful lift kits to sleek drop kits, cutting-edge LED lights and light bars, we've got it all. Unleash your style with confidence. Feel the next level of auto care at Streetcars of Memphis. Your dream ride is just a visit away. Visit us online at www.901scm.com and let the transformation begin.
Welcome back to On the Bluff. This is the Hot Three, presented by Streetcars of Memphis. Listen, man, we all have car issues. Everybody has cars. We want to keep our cars running healthy, running well, throughout the, especially as we're coming into the wintertime. Streetcars of Memphis can help you with that. They can do all just the regular maintenance stuff, Christian, but if you also want to put spinners on your sedan, if you want to jack your sedan up and put some big mud and tires on it, you can do it, man. Streetcars of Memphis can do it for you.
Go for it.
Hey, big shout out to Streetcars of Memphis for sponsoring this segment. The description or the link is in the description below. Check it out. Christian, let's get to, you ready for the Hot Three?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. It's kind of our normal routine now. Let's talk college football, man. What are some of the games? I know me and you were super interested in the Colorado USC game, kind of what happened there. Ole Miss LSU was a big game. What are some of your thoughts about those games and what stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think for USC Colorado, we get to continue to see Caleb Williams just be ridiculously good. Like He has 24 total touchdowns in 5 games. He's averaging a touchdown every 67 yards, which is just absurd. And I think he threw his first pick on Saturday against Colorado, but other than that, just surgical what he does with the ball, the way he moves in the pocket. But I will give Colorado credit. I mean, this is a game where they were down
a lot.
28-7, I think, is what they went down by at one point. Yeah. And in the second half, they really controlled the majority of the second half. Shedeur Sanders made some incredible plays, 375 yards, 4 total touchdowns, 3 passing, 1 rushing. He just continues to be extremely impressive. But it's what we talked about last week. Like, this team they're not there yet. They don't have it defensively. They're not good defensively. They really have one standout player defensively who has not played the last 2.5 games. And it's been very obvious how much they miss him. But even with Travis Hunter back there, like, they're still not a good defense. But overall, just for them to keep battling in that game, especially coming off the blowout to Oregon, they could have let that get out of hand the same way that Oregon game did. They didn't. They bounced back. They played well. Yeah. But yeah, that's really it. I mean, me and Gabe have talked a lot about Alex Grinch and his defense at USC, and it's just not good for them. And to me, like, that's going to be their downfall. Yes, they're really, really good offensively. That Taj Washington Memphis transfer has been incredible. Brendan Rice has been really good. They have a kind of a stable of running backs that have been good for them, and then the clear and obvious of Caleb Williams, and then Zachariah Branch, the true freshman, as well. So offensively, they're as loaded and as good as any team in the country, but defensively, they're just not good. They're not a good defensive team. They allow big plays. They're not physical. So I think that'll be USC's kind of downfall at some point this year.
Caleb Williams makes 18 NFL franchises better at quarterback right now. If he were to suit up this week, today, for 18 NFL franchises, they'd be better at quarterback than they are the week before.
It's probably true.
You think that's true?
Probably.
I mean, there's not many that. I mean, Caleb is awesome, but have you kind of shifted your thoughts on if he's a mashup between Lamar out?
No. My thoughts haven't shifted on that. I would never say that, but I think he is gonna. I mean, I don't like
Mahomes. Is he the second coming of Mahomes?
No, I mean, I don't think that either. But I'm not big on comparison anyway. Like, I think Caleb Williams is gonna come in and be Caleb Williams. Like, he does different stuff. Like, the way that he moves and throws the ball on the run. Everybody wants to compare it to Mahomes, but it's different. It has its own flavor and it's different. So yeah. But I mean, I don't disagree. I think he could come in today and be a successful starting NFL quarterback. LSU Ole Miss, I got the catch. Did you get to watch that when you got home?
I didn't get to watch any of it. No.
Yeah, I caught the majority of the second half when I got home. It was fun. It was a fun game, back and forth. Jaden Daniels played incredible. Jackson Dart played incredible. And LSU they couldn't finish. They went up. I think it was 48-40. They went up with like 5 minutes left, and Ole Miss scored in like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
I think Ole Miss had 731 yards of offense or something like that. It was just a back and forth, up and down game. A lot of fun.
The box score was pretty hilarious. Like, if you look at the box score on ESPN.com, it's hilarious.
Oh yeah,
everybody did well. Anybody who played had stats in that game.
Yep. Yeah. Quinshon Judkins, Logan Diggs, everybody, even the running backs in that game went off. And Ole Miss hasn't been able to run the ball all year, and they play. That's probably the best run defense they've played, with Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo and Harold Perkins, and Quinshon Judkins finally has his breakout game. football doesn't make sense. We all know that.
It just doesn't make sense. Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. But yeah, it was a fun game. It was a good game.
You think Ole Miss is for real?
No, I'm not an Ole Miss fan. I don't like Ole Miss. Never been a fan of Ole Miss.
Is it Ole Miss or is it Lane Kiffin?
No, it's Ole Miss. I can't stand Ole Miss.
So Ole Miss hiring Lane Kiffin, because I'm not a Lane Kiffin fan. I think he's a doofus.
Yeah, he's kind of funny.
You like Lane because he was.
I don't like.
You like
Lane.
the character.
Yeah, I think he's comical, but I'm not I'm not out there sticking my neck out for Lane Kiffin by any means. I think he's a really good offensive coach. Yeah, like good offensive mind.
So you just think this is two teams that just they couldn't stop each other, and they were just it felt like a Memphis game from like 2018, 2017.
Yeah,
right.
No, it really did. It was just back and forth nonstop. Nobody could get a stop. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. A good game. Last thing, and then we'll move on. Georgia Auburn. I've talked about Georgia a couple times this year, and just I haven't seen it with them, and I get it. They're back-to-back defending national champions, but when you lose that much talent, it is so hard to be that good of a team over and over again.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, when they won the first national championship, they lost a lot, but they still had a lot left over because they had guys playing in rotational roles. They still had Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter and Khalil Ringo, and Stetson Bennett was still there. Like, they still had so much, and now they don't. Carson Beck, I'm still definitely not sold on him. I still don't think that they have a true difference maker at running back. I know they've had some injuries on the offensive line. Amarius Mims and Cedric Van Pran are both projected to be first-round picks. And defensively, they just don't have many of those guys in the front seven. I mean, they've got Malachi Starks and Javon Bullard on the back end, who are very, very good players, but they just aren't that good in the front seven.
Yeah,
they're not as good. They're not nearly as good as they were the past 2 years in the front seven. I mean, they beat Auburn by 7 points, and Peyton Thorne only threw for 82 yards. Like, it's just not impressive, and Georgia's continued to kind of be lackluster throughout the year. South Carolina played them extremely close in the first half. I know they separated in the second half, but overall they just haven't looked like the Georgia of the last 2 years that we've been used to seeing, and I don't know. I don't know how it ends up. I think they play Kentucky this week. I don't think Kentucky's that great either, but they just plowed over Florida because do you know who that running back is that went off for them?
For Kentucky?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you do.
I do know who he is?
Mm-hmm.
Let me look. Ray Davis?
Ray Davis. His name is Raymond Davis.
Raymond Davis.
Yes.
How do I know that name?
He played at Temple.
Oh, Raymond Davis.
It was the running back at Temple that every time Memphis would play Temple would be like, that guy's awesome.
Who is this guy? So he's at Kentucky now. I didn't know he had eligibility still.
Yep. And he ran for 280 yards.
I mean, man. I didn't get to see any of the Florida-Kentucky game either. And that's crazy. That's a lot of yards. 280 yards.
Is that right, or did he finish with more?
No, he finished with 280.
Yeah, 280.
Average 10 yards a carry, bro.
12.
Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe
26 carries, 280, 10.8 yards per carry.
10.8, yeah.
That's wild, man. So you think Kentucky, I mean, I've noticed this about Georgia too over the last, since the beginning of the year. They're just not, and again, it's not, they're still the number one team. They haven't lost. They've done everything that they've needed to do in terms of staying in that number one spot. But it is clear that they're not as dominant as they were before, as they were in previous years.
And I think a team like Kentucky can give them another close game.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
and
that's what I'm wondering.
I don't think Kentucky's that good. Like Devin Leary transferred from NC State, and everybody thought that he was going to really elevate this team, and he just has not been good at all. And like, he's an experienced quarterback that has not played like an experienced quarterback. But if Kentucky's able to play Kentucky's style of football and they're able to run the ball and control the clock, then they can give Georgia some issues. Like if Raymond Davis runs the ball like that again, then it should be an interesting game. It's two undefeated teams. Georgia's 14.5-point favorites, which I think is fair. And it's in Athens. So I don't see Kentucky winning this game, but I mean, Georgia was 14-point favorites this past week against Auburn, and it was a 7-point game. So I could see this being another close game situation, unless Kentucky just can't get any offense going, and Devin Leary can't threw the ball for 69 yards this week. So if if they're not able to, if Raymond Davis isn't able to, start eating early in that game, then
it's gonna have to be super effective,
right?
And is Brock Bowers gonna go off again like he did?
Probably.
He's nasty, right?
He's awesome. Yeah, 128 yards in the fourth quarter. He single-handedly pretty much won them that game. He did everything. He's
definitely, I think, the one guy that's from previous teams that were so dominant that is just he's definitely the reason why Georgia, I think, is still in that position at the number one in the nation. We did this with Memphis. Kind of figured out where you stand after the first 5 games of the year. I think it's pretty clear that in college football there's not really a dominant team. Like there's not just a super dominant team, but coming out of week 5 into week 6, who's your top 3? Like what teams do you think are the teams that you go, man, in the end when it's all said and done, let's go top 4 since it's going to be a 14 playoff. Like where do you think, what teams are going to be in that?
Michigan's been really impressive.
Yeah, they have been.
They haven't played anybody, but J.J. McCarthy looks really good. Blake Corum looks really good. So I would go Michigan, Florida State. I think Florida State has probably the most talent of any team in the country, proven talent.
Yeah.
Then I mean, you want to say Washington because they've played so well, but they haven't played anybody. Like Michael Penix is averaging 400 yards a game right now.
That's so dumb.
They have 3 NFL receivers on that roster, and Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Polk. Like they have 3 really good receivers, but we haven't seen them play anybody. So I can't say them. I mean, I almost go chalk with like Georgia and Ohio State or something like that, because Ohio State does have a very impressive win. So.
Well, you're not going chalk here because Texas is in the top 3. So you don't believe Texas, yeah. No. So you think Florida State is better than Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean Texas has a lot of weapons too. Like Texas has very, very legit guys, Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. Like they've got some really good players as well. But I just believe more in Jordan Travis than I do Quinn Ewers at this point.
And you believe more in Mike Norvell than you do Steve Sarkisian?
Steve Sarkisian, yes, 100%. 100%. So I guess that would be it. I guess I would go Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Ohio State.
Yep. I don't think that's bad. All right. You ready to go? Moving on. Talk about number 2, NFL. It's a crazy weekend, man.
It's always a crazy weekend.
Lots of fun stuff happening.
Yeah, no, it's never not crazy.
Let's go. Here's the game that stuck out to me, and we're going to talk about a bunch of different games, but here's the game that stuck out to me that I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
You got this. Not that the Bills have won anything in terms of, they haven't won any They're not the Chiefs. They haven't won Super Bowls. They haven't, but they're a good team. They've been around for a little bit now. They're a proven team. Josh Allen is a hell of a quarterback. And then you got Miami, who hung up 70 last week. Yep. Seems to have probably the most dynamic offense in the NFL this year, outside of. I mean, Miami's probably the most dynamic offense.
Yeah, no, it's not outside of anybody. It's them.
It's them. Miami comes into Buffalo yesterday. And Buffalo proceeds to lay a beat down on Miami. Yep. What were your thoughts about that game? I mean, that was a beat down, right?
Yeah, Miami just couldn't keep up. And it started out 14-14, and it looked like it was going to be a track meet all game. And then from that point, Buffalo really took over. And at the end of the day, if Josh Allen plays like this, Like if you get this version of Josh Allen, Buffalo is almost impossible to beat because they have, Stephon Diggs and James Cook and Gabe Davis and the 2 tight ends and Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox that have played well this year. And then defensively, we know how stout Buffalo has been. Unfortunately, I think they lost Tre'Davious White to a torn Achilles, who is it's hard to argue that he's their best player in their secondary because their secondary is so good with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. But that secondary with those 3 is incredible. And without him as their best corner, then that completely changes the defense. But even outside of, their secondary, they've got Matt Milano, they've got Ed Oliver, like they've got really good players at every level of the defense and everywhere on offense. Like they're a very complete team, and they have been over the last 4 years or so. But you just get that up and down Josh Allen, the Josh Allen that we saw in week 1 against the Jets, and then you get the Josh Allen we saw this week against the Dolphins. So if he's playing like this at this level, then Buffalo is arguably the best team, in the NFL. Definitely a top 3 team, and you can make an argument that they're the best when they play the way that they did on Sunday. So it was a little bit shocking because of the way that Miami had been rolling this year, but they just ultimately couldn't keep up offensively.
I mean, did Miami play really that bad, or was Buffalo just a juggernaut yesterday where you just couldn't keep up with them?
Yeah, I think they were just in such a rhythm that they would have had to score every single possession to be in that game and for it to be a competitive game. Like I said, they scored. It was 14-14. 4 possessions. Both teams scored twice, and then Buffalo was able to string together some stops, and Miami wasn't. So, yeah, I think Buffalo was just a better team on the day, and they couldn't be stopped. It was just one of those games where everything kind of went right for Buffalo.
Yeah, it was wild. I was super intrigued by that matchup coming into the week, and I was like, man, it definitely. I don't want to put too much weight into it. Like, it's not Miami's year this year. That's just not. I mean, Miami is going to be really hard to beat if their offense plays the way that we think they can, or at least I think they can. They're going to be a tough out, but it's very clear. Buffalo was ready to make a statement. I think it very much felt like a statement win for them yesterday.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Cowboys a little bit.
Let's go, man.
Didn't want to talk about them last week. I'll talk about them a little bit this week. It still was very similar to the way that the Cowboys had played all year. Like the defense was really good, and the offense couldn't score in the red zone. I think they've outscored their opponents 108-13 in the 3 games that they won.
Yeah.
It really could be like 148 if they were scoring touchdowns and not kicking field goals every time they were in the red zone. But the red zone inefficiencies is the biggest story. Still, I mean, even though they just handed Bill Belichick the worst loss of his head coaching career, regardless of all that, like if the Cowboys can't score in the red zone, then they're not going to be able to beat good teams. They play San Francisco next Sunday night, and that is the test of all tests. And if you can't score touchdowns against the 49ers, then you're going to have a hard time winning football games. So, yes, it was
Zeke. Are they missing Zeke in the red zone?
No, I think that's overblown. That people saying they don't have a hammer and all this stuff. No, they're just not executing.
Yeah.
Like there were 2 of the 3 drives that ended in field goals yesterday. They ran the ball on first down, I think, for 6 yards.
Yeah.
But then, they get to a 3rd and 1 on one of those possessions, and they try to drop back, and there's a miscommunication on the offensive line, and they get sacked. And on another one of those plays, I think it was 3rd and goal from the 2, and Tony and Dak run into each other. Like miscommunication on the handoff. I think Tony went the wrong way, and they run into each other. So it's execution. It's not about, not having Ezekiel Elliott or anything like that. I think they just haven't executed very well up to this point.
Did you see him on the sidelines for New England yesterday?
Yeah.
He looked sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he was. I'm sure he didn't want to lose by 35.
To his former team.
Yeah.
That was rough. That was rough. I didn't get to watch the game, honestly, Christian. So this is why Gabe does not need to get married during football season, because not only does he cause us to miss games on Saturday, I've been sick all week, so I didn't get a chance to watch much of the games on Sunday. What What else was out there on? What other games did you see that you were interested in?
Yeah, I'm going to hit on two more, and then we can move on. First thing is that the Bengals just cannot get it going offensively.
Yeah.
At all. 27-3 to a Titans team that really has not been good this year. Offensively, they've been a disaster. Ryan Tannehill's been a disaster. They haven't been able to run the ball. Derrick Henry runs for 123 yards. Ryan Tannehill plays a pretty perfect game, pretty clean game. I think he maybe threw an interception, but other than that, he played really well. And the weird thing is Cincinnati on their first drive, they go straight down the field. They get to like the 3-yard line and they end up kicking a field goal. And then I don't think they made it to the red zone again after that. First drive, Burrow was 4 of 5 for 55 yards, and he ended with 160.
Yeah.
So it's just like they can't get in a rhythm. They can't get in sync. You got Jamar Chase.
That was rough.
After the game yesterday, saying he's always open.
You having a hard time getting open? Is it hard for you to get open in the secondary right now?
Yeah.
I'm always open.
Yeah.
He said that very bluntly.
Yeah. So they just, I don't know. They can't string it together. They can't get anything going. Zach Taylor after the game was clearly upset and frustrated. So, I mean, I know a lot of it's contingent on Joe Burrow's health and, what they can do and what they're limited to, as far as taking deep shots. And that's what that offense is predicated on is taking deep shots and stretching the field. And they're just really confined to 10 to 15 yard throws right now. And it's not what they do. So I think as soon as we see Burrow get healthy, I think they'll be fine. I think everything will get back on track. But as of right now, it's just an ugly product. And then the 49ers continue to absolutely roll. Christian McCaffrey. Jerry Rice, Frank Gore, Roger Craig, some of the great players, Terrell Owens that they've had in San Francisco. Like McCaffrey's the first one to do that. And they look dang near unbeatable with how good their defense is, with how perfect almost is the only word to describe their offense. I think Purdy started like 14 of 14 on Sunday, and then you got McCaffrey, and Brandon Ayuk comes back and goes over 130 yards, and Deebo Samuel, who was really a non-factor. They didn't even have to use Deebo or Kittle for the most part yesterday. That's how dominant their offense was. Like it's going to be hard for anybody to beat the 49ers. And I know we say this pretty much every year, but the execution that Brock Purdy is bringing to this team is, to me, better than anything Jimmy Garoppolo ever did. So I think this is the best version of the 49ers that we've seen under Kyle Shanahan. So that's pretty much it. Pretty much all I got for NFL breakdown.
Well, we got one more game we need to talk about, and it's going to be topic number 3. I want to talk about the Jets versus Chiefs. Man, I almost said Jets versus Broncos, and I was like, that's not it though. That's not it though. Jets versus Chiefs. Obviously, a big deal was made about it because of certain pop stars showing up to the game. Did you count how many times they showed Taylor Swift on camera?
It's so annoying.
Isn't it annoying?
Oh, it's so annoying.
It's like
I get it. I get it.
As a camera guy, I'm sitting there and I'm going, I can guarantee you that behind the scenes there was a producer that was like, get me a static camera on Taylor Swift.
The best game of his career.
Wild, right?
It was, he played really well, especially this was a week where there was a lot of talk about the Jets after what happened on the sidelines last week with Garrett Wilson. Everybody was frustrated on the sidelines. There were reports coming out during the week that Robert Saleh was in danger of losing the locker room because they wouldn't go to a different quarterback. They wouldn't bring in a different quarterback to take over from Zach Wilson. And there was just a lot of negative reports surrounding the Jets throughout the week. They bring in Trevor Siemian, so they did bring in a veteran quarterback. And Zach Wilson comes out and plays one of the best games of his career, probably the best. I know he's had better statistical games, but from, the pressure of the situation, right. Sunday Night Football prime time against arguably the probably top 3, top 4 team in the league, Super Bowl champions, and he comes out, plays a very efficient game. Unfortunately, fumbled at the end. He fumbled the snap.
That was tough, man.
That allowed the Chiefs to ice the game and run the clock out, but he played clean. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over until that point. He was accurate. He showed off his arm strength. And I mean, I'm not some Zach Wilson apologist like people are, claiming Robert Saleh is, but there's a reason he was the number 2 overall pick. Like there's arm talent there. You see it in the way he throws a ball. He can throw a ball. He has a ridiculous amount of arm talent. Like unquestionably, he has a ridiculous amount of arm talent. To me, it's all mental with him. It's all confidence. It's all that. It's all in between the ears. As far as from a talent perspective, whether it's mobility or arm strength or any of that, he checks all those boxes.
What did you think, as somebody who doesn't, as somebody who's not an aficionado when it comes to like the quarterback, the quarterback position? It was super interesting to hear who's the color commentator for NBC, the Sunday night game.
Chris Collinsworth.
Chris Collinsworth. Do you like him, by the way?
I know a lot of people. A lot of people are not high on Chris Collinsworth, but I like Chris Collinsworth.
I think he's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like I think he breaks things down in a way that makes guys like me go, "Oh, okay, I got you."
Yeah.
He was talking about the West Coast offense and how it literally is like a dance, right? The quarterback position is like a dance. It's a 1, 2, 3, stop, read 1. 1, 2, stop, read 2, and then either go and do your thing. He mentioned that during the game, and how that's what Zach is struggling with. That's what he's been struggling with in this offense. And you saw him. I think there was, it was kind of like the Seth Henigan game where came out in the first quarter, didn't play great, but then there was just one moment where it just felt like it clicked, and for the rest of the game, he was made the confidence level. You could see it even like literally raising while you were on the, while he was on the field. There was that one drive, I think, Christian, where he had, I think 3 or 4, the one that he ended up scoring the touchdown on the 2-point conversion, where he ended up getting the 2-point conversion. He threw a touchdown pass back shoulder to his tight end, I think, and then he scored the 2-point conversion. Yeah. And that drive felt, for me, like that was kind of a turning point for Zach in that game. But maybe, obviously games are different each week. But that one felt like, because it was right before that Chris Collinsworth had said it was that dance, that 1, 2, 3, stop, and then throw 1, 2, 3. It's the decision making, right? Getting it out there.
Yeah.
And you saw it with him in that drive. Like he made quick, clear, concise decisions. And when he made those decisions, he made good decisions. And they were able to continue to do that throughout the rest of the game. Unfortunately, you're just playing against Patrick Mahomes, and you don't always have to win pretty, but Patrick Mahomes wins. You know what I'm saying? That's what he does.
Yeah, no, to me, it'll be interesting. Like, is this a jumping off point for Zach Wilson and the Jets and for Nathaniel Hackett? And like, did they find their rhythm? Like, did they find something in this loss? And I mean, I think Robert Saleh said it perfectly after the game. Like, if Zach Wilson plays like this the rest of the season, we're going to win a lot of games. And he's right.
Yeah, that defense, man.
The defense is awesome. And if he plays like that, they have a chance. But now it's a question of, is this a flash in the pan, or is he able to build?
hella physical the entire game.
It was. Yeah, it was. It was. And I mean, you're going to get holding calls when you have physical corners. It's just going to happen. And DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner are physical corners, and sometimes it's called, sometimes it's not. I mean, technically, it's a holding call.
Yeah.
I mean, he grabbed him, pulled his head down. I mean, his whole head went down. He couldn't turn around and look for the ball. So technically, it is a holding call.
Yeah.
It just depends on how refs are going to call games. Like, sometimes they let stuff go. Sometimes, like, that is one of those calls that some refs would let that go, and then other refs are going to call it. So I don't think it's super controversial or anything. I don't think it was like the Jets got screwed out of a win or anything.
Oh, it
was
a hold. It was without a doubt a hold.
Yeah.
Definitely held him.
Right.
I just think the whole game was that way. Like, the whole game was nasty the whole time.
Yeah, it was physical. But, I mean, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to me, the biggest storyline, let's talk about this. After the game, Rodney Harrison is talking to Chris Jones, interviewing Chris Jones after the game. And let's go to that clip. We'll play that clip really quickly, and then we'll break it down.
Was Zach better tonight than what you anticipated he would be watching him on tape? And you could be honest.
Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, we knew it was going to be a battle. He's continued to get better week in and week out, and he's continued to lead week in and week out.
But watching that tape, man, you got to look at this dude and say, oh, he is garbage. Like, we should really tear him apart. But tonight he came out and played extremely well against you guys.
Yeah, he played really well. Zach, people tend to forget he's a first-round quarterback.
Second pick overall,
Number 2.
Yeah.
And that kid is special. You know, I'm not the one to bash a kid because they have a couple bad games. I think it's important to give a guy respect. Look at those throws he's making right there. The kid is special. You know, you give him a little time, he can dot you up.
So some pretty tough comments from Rodney Harrison.
Not a fan of that, man. Not a fan of that.
And I mean, I get it. I get it, I guess. Like, Zach Wilson deserves criticism for how he's played in his career. I mean, you can't sit there and be like, Zach Wilson's incredible and has had an amazing career so far. But Rodney Harrison is clearly trying to prompt Chris Jones to just trash Zach Wilson. I mean, he literally, if the first question he asked, he goes, and you can be honest. And then he interrupts him multiple times with, okay, come on, you don't really feel that way. Like, Zach Wilson is garbage. Zach Wilson's been ripped a lot. Deservedly so. But he just played probably the best game of his career.
Right.
Against one of the best teams in the league on Sunday Night Football in primetime. And Rodney Harrison just goes to town on Zach Wilson and is actively trying to get Chris Jones to also shred Zach Wilson. I don't know.
It felt dirty.
To me, just was not a good look. Like, yes, you can say whatever. Like, after what he first said, like, yeah, it makes sense. Like, after watching the film and what you saw on film from him, like, is this what you expected from Zach Wilson? Fine question. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But then they like keep trying to get him to say negative things and like calling him garbage, and then Chris Jones is calling, says Zach Wilson is special, and Rodney shuts that down. It's like, come on, he ain't special. He's like, you're special. Zach Wilson ain't. It just was very in very bad taste to me. Like, it was just very unnecessary. Like, he just went too far with it.
There's nothing wrong with a interviewer asking questions that once they hear somebody willing to go down that path of talking trash.
Yeah.
To ask a question to build on top of that, to like kind of capitalize on that moment. That's what Rodney Harrison was looking for. He was looking for a tweetable moment, right? Like, he was looking for something that would say, with
he was
his
looking
face.
He was looking for clickbait.
There's a clickbait type of thing. And when a player is clearly willing to give you clickbait and like initiates the clickbait, then I think it's fun to kind of go with it, right? Like, kind of lean into that. But when Chris Jones
clearly did not want to go there.
He did not. Number one, he didn't want to go there. Number two, he probably doesn't even think that that's the case. He probably didn't think that Zach Wilson's garbage. It's clear, like, everybody that plays those games, everybody that plays in the NFL knows how mental the game is, like how tough it is. It is not Zach Wilson is not garbage. He can throw the ball. He's an accurate quarterback. He can play the game. He's got all the physical tools needed. And so you look at a guy like Chris Jones who's saying, listen, man, like once he gets this mental thing taken care of, he's going to be fine. And that's what they probably saw.
Yeah. And Chris Jones handled that like a freaking pro.
Like a pro.
Like commendable job not to stoop down to that level and trash someone who has been trashed plenty and is going to be.
It's an easy target.
Right. So Chris Jones.
It felt very bullyish to me what Rodney Harrison was trying to do.
It did. But Chris handled it perfectly. Like that was absolutely pro way to handle it. Don't go down to that level and still be complimentary. And it's a good job.
Good job.
Good job by Chris Jones.
Bad job, Rodney Harrison.
Bad job, Rodney Harrison. That was a little too far. But I think that's going to do it for us this week. We are going to wrap it up. Appreciate you guys for joining us. Like I said, we'll be back in studio with Gabe next week. We'll get to talk about all things wedding, all things honeymoon. Maybe not all things honeymoon, but some things honeymoon. And we'll hear from him and catch up with him on that. Head over to the website, bluffcitymedia.co. Check out everything we got over there. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment. If you're listening, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, you can leave us a rating. And what is it? What is it called? What do you do?
A review, a rating and a review.
Rating, review, and subscribe, and you'll get subscribe, but you'll get the weekly updates on when the podcast drops.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. You got anything else?
Notifications, the noties.
Notifications on always.
That's right.
Anything else we got? Or we good? We're
good, man. Hey, listen, Gabe, we miss you, brother. Save Christian for next. It's tough for Christian when he has to do a podcast with me
during football season. Basketball season, we're good, but football season,
I don't know anything. And I usually watch games, Christian.
Yeah, you didn't. That didn't help. You didn't have an opportunity to
get to watch a lot of games
as me.
So I apologize.
No, we're all good. I think it was a great episode, and we appreciate you guys for joining us, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.